Hello, welcome again to Sport Unlocked with me, Rob Harris from Sky News, Tariq Panja from the New York Times, and Martyn Ziegler from the Times. And made it to Australia to join Tariq out here for the Women's World Cup, although across the country. Well, it's good to be out here, and what a time it's been at the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. The jet lag for you should just be kicking in, so all the best with that. But yeah, incredible tournament, another incredible week. We've had more giants go out. Saw Germany eliminated, one of the big favourites this week, and also Brazil and the end of the World Cup career of Martyn.
I think did you make her cry in the press conference? Is that am I right in saying?
Well, it wasn't intentional, but Martyn had said this was going to be her last World Cup, her sixth and last. And I say Martyn because she is someone who's recognisable by that one name. And you know, I've been doing this career about 20 years, and Martyn, for most of it, was, for many people, the only female footballer that was known globally. And I asked her what that was like. You know, it was either, can you name a women footballer? And they'd say Martyn, or that Brazilian woman. She was that famous, 6 times World Player of the Year. And obviously the game has moved on a lot since then. When she tried to reflect on it, just floods of tears. And she also looked at the room, and there were many female Brazilian journalists in there. And she said, you know what? When I started, none of you were there either. And by the end of it, everyone was kind of in tears. It was quite a moment. Fortunately for her, she and the rest of the team were in tears a night later, as one of the shocks of the tournament, another one, Jamaica sent them packing. And Jamaica, no hopers at the start of the tournament, they had to do a crowdfunding, qualified as well. So incredible.
It's interesting, actually, you talk about Jamaica, and there's been a lot of focus on the crowdfunding issue. Jamaica themselves are now trying to deny that there was any crowdfunding, even though it's been reported for many, many weeks. It was the mother of one of the players who set it up. And they say they received vast funding from FIFA, CONCACAF, government, Adidas, Bob Marley Foundation, corporate sponsors. And, you know, they seem to be pushing back at that.
Well, it's not what the players were saying in the mix zone after the game. They mentioned the crowdfunding in the quotes after the game. So you can see that gap between the federation and the players might still exist despite the success.
Well, it's clearly a bit embarrassing for the federation, and they are trying to backtrack on that, I imagine.
And the return of Gianni Infantino in his first visit to Australia of the tournament too, who's on that trip of the Pacific Islands, and he has spent a few days along with the Oceanic Confederation defending that trip. We discussed it last week. And if we look what Infantino said, he was saying, we are here to care about those that nobody really cares about. We're here to be with those who are living in the remotest areas of the world and those who never give up and want to live their dreams. We're here to give everyone a chance. And that's him talking about why he went on that visit around Oceania, sort of portraying, obviously, FIFA as sort of the great saviours of the region in terms of investment.
Some people in FIFA are a bit unhappy with our discussion about Gianni Infantino going off to Oceania last week, not having been to Australia. I still think it's very strange that he hadn't been to co-host of the World Cup until quite a long time into the tournament. So I think that's you know, you can take your own view on that, and you know, there are lots of things about Gianni Infantino that sort of seem slightly odd. He's his social media page on Instagram, for example, he's got a big reel about celebrating his getting 1 million followers. There's a sort of thing, him kicking of balls in an empty stadium. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's just, I'm not quite sure what that's all about, to be honest. But I stand by the fact. I think it's very strange he didn't go to the co-host of the Women's World Cup until, you know, how long are we into the tournament? But quite a long way.
For me, there's two things here. The video and other behaviour like that draw attention to him. So there's a sort of cult of personality attempt, or a celebritization of being in that high office. I'm not sure all of that's particularly warranted. Do football fans around the world care that much about him as a doing things like that. I'm not so sure. However, there was something interesting in there was a press conference with Nigeria I went to earlier in the tournament, and the conversation about the compensation for the players, the prize money, and how there's going to be guaranteed prize money. And some of the Nigerian reporters in the press conference, they were sure that Nigeria were going to get this money because Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, had said so. He'd said it on video. They'd heard him say it, and that meant there was a seal of approval. So that kind of puts this in high stakes. So they think, why would he not tell the truth? Why would he say this if it's not going to happen? Now, this issue is potentially a really big one, because he's now said it. If this money isn't delivered from the highest office, then in Africa, in some places, he's very popular because of this, because of the things he says, like that. So, it's kind of a high stakes thing, and he is speaking directly to an audience, and in some cases, it does work.
I suppose he would see the Instagram account as being a way to engage with fans around the world, and for a lot of his initial years of his presidency, he would go on trips and you wouldn't really know about them, or you discover about them through local media. So the one thing is, when he's on these trips, you do actually find out through these very glitzy videos at times with him meeting lots of world leaders, very rarely football fans, but it does sort of give a glimpse into the life of the FIFA president. And then we can judge it, like we can judge producing a video just with him in an empty stadium kicking balls to celebrate having 1 million followers, with that appearing on the big screen.
No, that's true. And as I did say a few weeks ago on the pod that I thought actually FIFA's decision to stipulate exactly what the players should be paid from the money that's going to be paid to national associations on a sliding scale, depending how far they get, that I thought that was a really, really good idea and a strong idea. I mean, it seemed to be slightly tempered by the fact that there was no absolute guarantee they were going to get that because it was down to the national associations. But I think you'd have to be fairly confident in your position as a national association chief if you didn't actually pass on that money.
With those payments, though, if you look at the letter that was sent to the MAs, that was guaranteed. The surprise came when Infantino actually, in his words in Auckland, said it was a recommendation, and that caused a lot of consternation. Lisa Klaveness, the Norwegian FA president, she spoke up about that, saying, no, it's not a recommendation. It is a guarantee, and we have to see it's guaranteed. And what's interesting with what's happened in the tournament, Rob, is some of the teams that have been struggling to get paid are the ones that have created the shocks and have gone through. So now, instead of getting the 30,000, teams like Nigeria are guaranteed around 60,000, Jamaica 60,000 too, and let's not forget Morocco have also made it through to the knockouts. So at least the first two, these were federations with question marks about whether pay was being actually paid in the correct way.
And for many of those players, they're going to earn more from FIFA in the month or so than they would do in the entire year from their clubs.
Yeah, no, I think that should be right in a way because it's the sort of pinnacle of the game. So that's what it should be. So I think that's fine. I also think it's really positive that the likes of Morocco and Nigeria have got through, and Germany and Canada and Italy and Brazil haven't, because it actually shows the balance of power shifting, because there was a concern that the established countries were so far ahead of the others that in women's football that was a big issue. And it now seems that's been turned on its head, which I guess must be good.
South Africa, well done. We don't want to miss you out. What an incredible last-minute goal, last-minute victory to knock Italy out.
These are close moments. A lot of perhaps reassessments of views from when FIFA did expand the World Cup, that announcement from Infantino in Paris in 2019. So going from 24 to 32 teams hasn't led to a sort of huge number of games with vast disparities between the teams. And what was it? Morocco did open the World Cup by losing 6-0 to Germany. And then in the end of the group stage, it was Morocco went through and Germany going home.
Yeah, absolutely. What a turn up. Got absolutely battered, isn't it, Rob? I think it was the biggest score in the World Cup, that 6-0. There's been a couple of, maybe a 5-0 or a couple of 5-0s. Philippines lost to Norway maybe by 6 as well. But yeah, a mea culpa from me, because if you go back to that period when that announcement of expansion was made, I was sure that it might have been one tournament too early at least. But it's proven anything but shock results, very close games. But it does raise a question for me about what the level is. Where are we in the women's game in terms of professionalisation? Because what we've seen in the 4 years since France in 2019 and expansion, these other nations that were seen as being quite far behind have caught up, and some actually almost level pegging, if not, have knocked them out. So you could say at this moment, those national teams are stronger, certainly as this tournament's concerned. So it's very hard to see where the level of women's football is and where is it going. Where are we? Are we still on, ground floor, third floor, fourth floor, fifth floor? Like, what's the ceiling here? And we're nowhere near it.
It's really nice having 32 teams, not 24, because it's a much cleaner tournament, isn't it? And it just makes you think going to 48 teams for the Men's World Cup is going to be so messy. I don't like the 24 team for the Men's Euros either. So, yeah, keep it at 32.
And remember, that was the recommendation of FIFA's own feasibility study in, I think, 2016, in the early months of the Infantino presidency, saying the optimum sporting format would be keeping 32 teams, but that was balanced out against the need, they saw it, for expansion to 48 teams. It's interesting. One of the things we often hear, particularly from Gianni Infantino, is criticism of the negativity around FIFA and also the lack of focus on the good things they're doing. It was in Kigali talking about what the media being so mean towards FIFA and them not getting credit for the good things they're doing. So actually, when this week we had those great shocks with the small nations in football terms going through, I thought, well, actually, here's a good chance to hear about where FIFA cash is going, the FIFA forward, talk up some of the investment and how that might be reaping the rewards with the performances on the pitch. And finding out the non-negative news is not easy. Some people would be quite surprised. It's an interesting thing on a sort of communications front that it can actually often be easier for the scrutinizing coverage of media rather than trying to get information from institutions that is perhaps more positive.
Yeah, you'd have thought they'd be ready for that, wouldn't you? As the tournament's progressing, as these knockouts are going, as in many ways they should get credit for a lot of this. If it is their investment that has led to it, I guess they will point to that, but they should be able to show it. They should be ready, as you said, Rob. If the moment that someone's going to, even before you've had to ask the question, perhaps be ready to show these are the fruits of this investment. And look, I don't think it's that difficult because there's only 32 teams in the tournament as well. So you could actually have something ready for each of these nations. Say this is as a result of X investment. This program has been developed over a number of years, or these people are training many more hours than they used to, and this is the kit. Because it didn't exist before in a lot of these countries, and now it does. So show it.
Yeah, so we are often trying to seek non-negative lines of inquiry. And one other point to make on the return of Gianni Infantino to the Women's World Cup, it's been noticed actually there's quite a few national federations who haven't sent their top leaders to any World Cup matches here during the group stage. So the focus moves on in the knockout rounds as we are recording here for me in Sydney, but still so busy across the rest of football, particularly as the men's European season starts to get going. And we see a lot from UEFA about trying to wrap up a number of cases. And we did have some FFP announcements that slightly sort of slipped out, but you sort of have been scrutinising them a bit more, Martyn, to see particularly with Chelsea and their fine. Was it 10 million euros for various breaches? And just what was behind this?
It was a Friday night. The UEFA's club financial control body. I don't know why, but it always seems to put stuff out on a Friday night. I think the explanation this time, or the claim, was because there was an announcement about Juventus. They're being excluded or banned from the Europa Conference League for breaching their previous FFP settlement, and they wanted to do it after the stock market had closed because it might affect the share price. But be interesting to see if you guys think that's a justifiable reason. But yes, the Chelsea one is, I think, fascinating. So it's from 2012 until 2019, historical transactions which sound like they're irregular. They've been reported by the new owners, and they agreed a 10 million euro settlement with UEFA as a result. And that's just actually for the 2018-2019 seasons, because the rest are sort of out of time. I think this could be a big problem for Chelsea because it's the same accounts will have to be filed with the FA and the Premier League. They almost certainly are investigating, but they won't confirm or deny anything.
Because I think it's enormous. And again, the opacity of the UEFA system as well. We sort of 10 million, one paragraph, can everyone move on? What we're talking about here is potentially a raft of off-the-book payments is what this is in the crudest terms. And we don't know the scale of those. We don't know the impact of those. Look at the period in that time. What has Chelsea won? It's definitely won. I think it won the Champions League. What year did Chelsea win the Champions League? I think it won the Champions League in that time. It's won other titles. It's recruited players. All sorts of things that we've discussed about Manchester City in a way in the past could be the result of this. And it's all very opaque. And in terms of a level playing field, yes, they've got new owners, but the club is the club, and it has benefited from all of this. These irregular payments. So yeah, it's an absolutely big deal. And as you say, the Friday night dump from UEFA once again, it means it's very hard to scrutinise this, certainly in real time, and even now, days after, we still don't know very much, do we? They haven't published any great long report into what these clubs have done, including Juventus.
And the fine wasn't insignificant, 10 million euros. So you want to know what was actually behind that settlement. What did they actually do? And what is the secrecy around the wrongdoing if has now been effectively partly acknowledged in producing a settlement, although maybe part of it is not actually being declared publicly?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do provide full written reasons. I suspect they won't. But from what I have gleaned, looking into this in some detail, is that some of these transactions were off the books payments to agents, or they certainly appear to be, and other transactions which aren't even known about. They don't even know. They're not even sure exactly what they are. And Tariq, did you say you thought you'd picked up some of these other transactions might have been?
Yeah, there's a sense that there was payments to other figures related to players. Could be, again, it's very hard to know who an agent is these days. Well, it could be parents, relatives, and all sorts of other assorted individuals. But again, this just a broader issue of lack of transparency in football.
You say that lack of transparency, and we started talking about FIFA, and FIFA would often point to they launched this legal site that actually has reams of cases and details from cases from around the world.
Then FIFA, if you're in charge of football, go and ask Chelsea to publish this stuff. If it's the supreme body and wants to set an example, we should be asking the others to do the same. But the issue here is we're once again groping in the dark, and we only found this out because, is this right, Martyn? This is a result of self-reporting by the Chelsea new management that this happened. You remember, actually, in the deal, there was a delay. This all got stuck because when they were about to finish purchasing the club, they found these payments. I remember the bit of chatter about this, and it caused a delay in trying to clean this all up before the transaction could be completed. I guess this must be related to that. But again, this isn't something UEFA has found out, or its investigators, or this investigations committee. It's something that it's been taken to its door, just like all the Football League stuff. So you've got to wonder what else is going on in football, because UEFA surely not going to find it.
Yeah, you're right. I think the Todd Bowley Clear Lake Consortium, they withheld £100 million of the 2.5 billion. because the due diligence had uncovered these transactions which were unclear what they were. So they withheld the money on the basis that they might be liable for fines, and it turns out that there will be. I think what they were. I guess when you conduct the due diligence, if you're the auditor doing it, you have to. I think there's a legal obligation that you would have to raise this, and that if you didn't report it, that would put the club in a very, very difficult position. So I don't think it's not the fact that they were scrupulously honest. I think legally they were obliged to do so.
And Chelsea did say under this current ownership, they have fully cooperated and assisted with UEFA, and they have talked about full compliance and transparency with the regulators, while expressing their gratitude for the consideration of UEFA on the matter. I suppose particularly on social media, we've been hearing a lot maybe from Manchester City fans in how this case is covered.
Look, I think if I'm a Man City fan, I would probably also be pointing this out, that there should be greater scrutiny of this stuff, given everything that's happened to their club. In my opinion, quite rightly, given the sort of shopping trolley of allegations and charges, that really is worth scrutinising. But again, everything should be. With UEFA, something else caught my eye. There was an announcement that Turkey and Italy had decided to combine forces, perhaps for Euro 2032. And I was like, oh, they were competitors. That's a bit strange, and UEFA's going to analyse it. But I looked at UEFA statutes, and in there it says it might consider joint bids, but only if the countries are neighbouring. Last time I looked, Turkey is nowhere near Italy. So again, I'm sure the UEFA will find a way, as it tends to do. Like water finds its way. UEFA also probably will find its way through this.
Well, I think you can go from Italy to Turkey without entering another country or by boat, Tariq.
There you go. I'm sure that's the card that UEFA will play. Well done, Martyn.
Well, this reflects something we've been seeing with the IOC recently, which is almost the no losers bidding, ensuring there's a way of everyone having some success from a bidding contest. We saw it with the Paris and LA Olympic bids. In the end, Paris ending up getting 24, LA for 28. Here, UK and Ireland thought they had a clear path for 28 euros, and Italy thought Euro 32 was theirs. Then Turkey pursued their bid still, but they found this way of keeping UK and Ireland for 28 and latching Turkey on with Italy, which I suppose it does de-risk the bid in some way. If you've got multiple countries now involved in the hosting, there's so many complications from a logistical issue and an organisation issue with finances when you've got two countries. But I suppose it means if anything was to happen involving one of those countries, you've got backup options within the other country as well.
You can do it. So if you have just the group stages completely separate, it's not too bad. But it definitely adds to the cost.
Well, on the matter of hosting, another blow for the Commonwealth Games this week. We talked about it the other week when here in Australia, the state of Victoria withdrew their hosting of the 2026 Commonwealth Games. And now we've been hearing a potential host of the 2030 Commonwealth Games has pulled out from Canada, haven't they?
Yeah, Alberta. They thought the £1.5 billion cost too high. So we've had Victoria out for 2026. So we're now in a position where there is not a single active bid for any Commonwealth Games. I mean, I think it's not, the writing isn't so much on the wall as being sort of like tattooed on the body of the Commonwealth Games Federation.
Surely, time to bring the shutters down and start the fire sale of furniture and all the equipment, because this thing feels like it's done. And look, time does march on, doesn't it? As much as people like looking back at glorious moments in the past, sometimes there isn't a future or an avenue for some of these events. The world has changed so much. Where is the place for an event like this?
And we did touch on it the other week about the Commonwealth Games, its legacy with connections with the British Empire and concerns about that, going back to slavery as well. But for some athletes, they might not ever compete at the Olympics. They might not have success at the Olympics. Commonwealth Games events are where they can win some medals. So it's a balancing act. But if it's not producing financially, countries and cities don't want to sustain it anymore, do they?
Yeah, not to be too harsh on the athletes that you mentioned there, but I think a £1.5 billion or $2 billion price tag, so the 19th best heptathlete gets a chance to be on a podium. Probably, it's not a charity, I guess. And elite level sport is elite level sport, and being the 19th best at something is brilliant as well. You're better than millions of others. That said, spending this money so they can get a moment on a podium probably isn't the best way to spend that money.
What's your favourite Commonwealth Games moment, guys?
Oh, undoubtedly lawn bowls. It's just fascinating. When I was last at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, you speak to some of these competitors from distant places, often playing lawn bowls for medals, something that doesn't happen at the Olympics, and you don't really see it getting attention elsewhere.
Tariq?
Janshir Khan in the squash back in the day, I must say, because it was great player, great game, and the Commonwealth Games allowed squash to be played.
Well, particular memories. And on events, this month it's the World Cycling Championships taking place in Glasgow, of course, host of the Commonwealth Games in 2014. And Martyn's been having a chance to have a chat ahead of those championships with John Dutton, the CEO of British Cycling.
Now you've got a really big event with the World Championships, combined World Championships in cycling taking place in Scotland. How big a deal is this for cycling in Britain?
It's a historic event, Martyn. It's the first time ever that multiple World Championships have been brought together. So across 11 days, we see 13 different World Championships, 7 disciplines, over 8,000 riders. We're just into day 2 as we speak. So it's a really big deal. It's a big deal for the athletes competing. It's a big deal for Scotland overall. And I think for us at British Cycling, it's to make sure that we capitalise on the opportunity going forward.
The UCI, the International Cycling Union, have been, I'd say, you may have seen a reported a letter they sent to the British government about their policy on Russian competitors, and saying some sort of fairly threatening things about Britain hosting future cycling events. Are you concerned about the situation with the UCI in Britain at the moment?
Not at the moment, Martyn. I mean, first of all, the UCI being part of the decision-making on allowing neutral athletes to compete, Russian and Belarusian athletes under a neutral banner, with a framework that's put in place. So that's been between UCI, the local organising committee, which I sit on, and then UK government. We live in interesting, complex geopolitical times, and things change frequently. So I don't think there's any imminent threat. The UCI have been very clear, the IOC have been very clear, and hopefully we look forward to being part of the solution, not the problem.
The fact that Britain is taking this hardline position in terms of demanding the sort of extra declarations of neutrality, do you think that's going to have any sort of knockover into the Olympics, or do you think when you talk to individual cyclists, and do they ever sort of express concerns about competing against Russians?
I don't see any immediate concern. Obviously, we are still some way from Paris. There was a big conversation here in Glasgow with the Ukrainian team, and I think that has been worked through by the protocol that's been put in place. Indeed, Ukraine here with a really big squad and actually quite a high percentage of Ukrainian refugees in the city of Glasgow. It just shows the complexity of the world in which we live in. The UK government position has been made very clear, and we of course respect that.
There's been another issue for the Commonwealth Games that just you may have seen. So actually, we're in a situation now where no city is interested in hosting, or at least not officially bidding to host any Commonwealth Games in the future. It seems like this is a bit of a crisis moment for the Commonwealth Games, the very future, the federation. As the sort of one of the most important sports, what's your feeling about it?
I think it's really concerning, in particular, how close we are to 26. But Birmingham staged a fantastic games at short notice. I think Ian Reid and his team did an absolutely brilliant job. The size of the cost of the Commonwealth Games for Birmingham reported at £800 million. And I guess just prompts a bigger conversation around reach, relevance and impact for major events as the public purse, not just here in the UK, but across the world, becomes strained. We are living in an ever-changing world, and I think that's the conversation. The conversation is right now about how can you deliver major sporting events that offer more than what happens on the field of play in the most efficient way. And that's the challenge, I guess, from cities across the world.
There's no easy answers, though, are there?
There are no easy answers. And if you look at, we are based in Manchester and we benefited from the National Cycling Centre off the back of the 2002 Commonwealth Games, which changed significantly East Manchester, led to the development of the Etihad campus. So there is physical change when we talk about legacy. And I walked around Birmingham recently, and you can see the upgrade to the train station, the city centre. That was delivered in a really short time scale, which wasn't the big capital build and was delivered efficiently, but at a significant cost. So there are no easy answers. I would come back to three words, which is reach. How can major events make sure that it has the biggest reach across the population? If we think back to before the pandemic, our consumption of digital media and sport was changing. And I think the pandemic has probably supercharged some of that change, particularly from younger people. How can we be more relevant and reach more of the population in between, not waiting for the big party every 4 years? And how can we create meaningful impact? And I think Birmingham truly did that. I know my last tournament, the Rugby League World Cup, we absolutely did that, and many other events are capable of doing that. And I think if you can get the right blend of reach, relevance and impact, then major events are here to stay and perhaps play an even bigger role in the societal change.
In one of your first jobs when you came in, John, was bringing in the new policy on eligibility and specifically around transgender women. And you've sort of had a particular challenge in that you had a cyclist, Emily Bridges, who was certainly on the point of joining the sort of elite ranks until the issues were raised about her eligibility. The new policy says that there's going to be you have to be, in order to compete in women's events, you have to be born female. I think that's right, isn't it? And
it is, yes.
How difficult was the process, and what's the feeling now? I mean, Emily Bridges, she put out a very, very strongly worded statement. I think she even used the word Nazis. What's your feeling about how that has unfolded since then?
I think if we start with the process, if we start with the subject matter, it's divisive, it's emotive, it's difficult, it's a societal issue that sports had to grapple with, and cycling are not on their own. I think it was only yesterday that British Rowing announced their new competitive transgender policy. We had made a decision and wanted to communicate that in the clearest, most empathetic way. We've now moved on to an implementation phase. What we have continually said, Martyn, is that we will review the policy should new medical evidence become available. And whilst having sympathy with many transgender riders who've been affected by this, our policy was predicated on fairness, and we absolutely stand by that. That has been endorsed more latterly by the UCI. We went before the UCI. But it will continue to be difficult, emotive and divisive.
We're less than a year out from the Olympics. cycling also for Britain has always, well, certainly since 2008, 2004, perhaps, has been the sort of one of the sort of most reliable sports for Team GB in terms of winning medals. What's the situation looking like for Paris at the moment? You might be losing one of your sort of standout performers because in terms of, she's just I think has she had a baby or is she pregnant? I need to just check.
Laura, yeah.
Laura Kenny.
Yeah, we don't know whether Laura will be back on the track and competing. But if you take day one at the track here, 5 medals, 2 golds, a silver, and 2 bronzes with new riders coming through. We're in good shape, and I would say we're in good shape not just on the track but across the board. We've also got Tom Pidcock, who can't wait to see Tom in action across the mountain bike endurance here in Scotland, and was obviously successful in the last Olympics. BMX freestyle, of which I think we are world leading, and Charlotte Worthington's performance encapsulated that. And across BMX, Kai White, best driver, and many more. So I think we're in a really strong position, Martyn, subject to injuries and all the usual things of competing in a major tournament. But yeah, looking forward to both the Olympics and the Paralympics. And what's been great here is the integration of para athletes in a completely authentic way. And we've got some real superstars. Yeah, we look forward to what's going to happen here in Scotland over the next 10 days. And that will set us up very nicely for 12 months' time.
John Dutton there, the CEO of British Cycling, and we heard him talking about that challenging decision around banning transgender participants, those who were born male from female events, and it's something that all sports are confronting, and in rowing, in British rowing in particular, they've reversed their previous decision, haven't they?
Yeah, they've now got an open category for anybody, and then a protected female category for anyone who's born female. It's the way lots of British sports are going. The international federations seem to be sort of following suit slowly. World Rowing still hasn't done that. You know, you can still compete as a transgender woman with reduced testosterone, but it does seem that this is the way most sports are now heading. It's very, very contentious, sort of, I'm sure lots of culture wars around it, but in terms of sport, I think we are now, it's now going to be, I think, the sort of the main model that sports are going to take in the future.
The Women's World Cup continues here in Australia. Tariq, good to join you in English terms on the other side of the world, even though we are separated by vast distances here in Australia.
Nice to be with you, Rob. Nice to see you in the same time zone-ish.
Yeah, multiple time zones here as well in the glorious Australian winter of Sydney. And Martyn, good chatting to you.
Yeah, guys, keep safe, keep well.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. As ever, you can message us at Sport Unlocked on X, formerly known as Twitter, Thread, Instagram and Facebook. For now, goodbye.